All right, should we go into the fan questions then?
I did want to ask one question before we got there. I guess I'll count this as my personal fan question.
Okay.
Can you talk to us a little bit about HP goalkeeping? Can you talk to us a little bit about what it is, how it started, and
Yeah, so started when I was playing in San Jose through a mutual goalkeeper coach at the time, a guy named Tashak. He was coaching at was he at TFC? I think it was TFC then Vancouver, something like that. But anyway, long story short, he says, "Hey, I got a buddy you need to meet. He's up in Vancouver. He started his own goalkeeping glove company, but doesn't know anything about it. He's actually in tugboats, but he just started because he got tired of overpaying for gloves for his high school kid. So put me in contact with this gentleman named Rob. Rob and his son Parker flew down to San Jose for a weekend, trained him. We met, we chatted. He had a couple pair of the gloves. I was like, yeah, they're decent. Okay. And I didn't think anything of it. And then a couple weeks later, he calls and I got this great idea, want you to come in, be a partner with me. You start HPG, in the US, and, they had HPG in Canada going, but, wasn't doing much. Cause again, he has a real job that makes a lot more money than goalkeeping gloves. So, right. He's like, I want you to design, develop everything, go from there. And, I'll just kind of let you do your thing. So that's, did that, started running it, out of San Jose, and took me 4 or 5 months, and we worked on designing the gloves and the pants and the jerseys. And I wanted to get it right, because we weren't going to have a lot of stuff and we weren't a big name, so I had a lot of my MLS buddies like training in the off season in the stuff, telling me what they like, what they didn't like, tweaking it. So did that. And then, I don't know how many years into it, but when I was in San Jose, right when I was making when I was in Chicago, right when I was making the transition from Chicago to Indiana, Rob just got so busy in his real job, we were going to shut HPG Canada down anyway, and he just basically was like, "Look, company's yours. Let's figure it out. I'm out." And it was simple as that. Like, he was a great guy, and next thing you know, I'm running HPG by myself, and so it's. I love it. It gives me another, kind of avenue, dynamic of goalkeeping, something different. I've learned a lot more about gloves than I ever knew. It's also very interesting to see it from the other side, because again, when you're just a goalkeeper, all you do is you text or you call or you email the guy who, sends you gloves and say, "Hey, I need more gloves." When you're on the business side of it, especially when you're a small glove company, every time, one of the pros texts me and asks for more gloves, like, I see dollar bills in my mind. So, right. I'm now a business owner that needs to balance that. Okay, if I send this guy X amount or that lady X amount, like, how many extra do I have to sell? So it's all a business now.
Right.
But we've been 10 years, I think, plus 10, maybe longer than that. So I haven't messed it up yet. So we're doing it, I guess.
That's fantastic. That's so cool. All right. So shall we move into some fan questions? These, I said, we put it out there, and some of them, like I said, some of them were a little crazy. We talked off camera a little bit, but there was a video we couldn't quite make out, but about you with a conversation with a Galaxy striker in the 13 Cali Classico. Somebody was interested about if you fished. There were a few ones there that were like, we're not interested in those, but there are definitely a few here that we'd love to pick your brain on. So I'll let Connor start, and we'll flip flop off of.
Okay.
Sure. So first question here, pretty fun. Did you have a favorite crew teammate?
I mean, I loved all the guys. McBride, Dante Washington, Mike Clark, but my favorite was definitely Brian Mazonoff, 100%.
Gotcha. Most memorable match or moment, either for the crew or just in your overall career?
I mean, obviously, winning the Open Cup was special. That was my first trophy. And then probably starting my first national team game for the full team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say those are probably the top two right there.
Love that.
So this one might be kind of specific, but is there a favorite or most memorable save that you had in your career?
There's one in Chicago. I'm trying to remember who we played. I think Birch hit it. What was Birch? I think he hit it when he was playing for DC. It was a free kick. And it was to my left. And I started going over, and then all of a sudden it tailed back to my right. So I'm here, and then I got to go back here, and I had to move. That was one of the best ones. There was one in San Jose too, when we were playing LA. And gosh, I can't remember who hit it, one of the midfielders, but he hit it from distance. And I think I was 6-7 yards out. And so I'm going back over my left shoulder, and I end up tipping it over. And they get a corner out of it, whatever. And then halftime, as we're walking in, Bex comes over to me and goes, "That was some save." And I remember going like, "Holy crap." Bex just I had a good save. Like, I was like, "Oh, shit, this is awesome." I was like, hey, thanks, David.
That's so
But
cool.
then when I saw it back, either that night or the next day, I was like, yeah, that was a good save. So those are the two that kind of come into my mind.
Yeah.
Now it's on Chicago and San Jose subreddits. They got to go find those clips now.
Yeah, they got to go track them down.
Hey, look, when Bex tells you it's a good save, it must have been a good save.
It must have been pretty good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this one's a specific one, and you're either going to know it right off the bat, or it's
Okay.
going to mean nothing to you.
Okay.
When you would look off to the side in your starting 11 pictures,
Yep.
was there something you were looking at, or was it just off into space?
No.
Just off into space.
No, yeah. I was probably thinking about Chick-fil-A or Dunkin' Donuts. It was my two favorites. No, it was something that it was something that Todd Yeagley and Brian Masonoff they must have been doing it at Indiana, I think was the original. And like I said, Mays, I was like Mays' little brother kind of thing. So one of my first games, he was like, "You gotta look off to the side." And of course I'm like, "Okay, why?" I have no idea, but I'll do it. My older brother told me to do it. So it was kind of their thing. And then like they brought me into it. So once I started doing it, I just always kind of did it. And it was after after Mays retired and Yeggs retired, and I went to different places. Like for me, it was just kind of respect for those two, because they were big in my early days. And so I always wanted to kind of, show them that I thanked them for what they did and bringing me in and putting their arms around me in Chicago or in Columbus.
That's cool. That's really neat.
Honestly.
I've had so many people ask me, "What are you looking at?" No, I'm just looking over there.
So somebody in the subreddit thought you were looking at a very specific camera person, but it seems that's not the case.
Looking at what? A specific...
like a specific camera person off to the side, like there was a second shot.
No. I was never looking at anything. Like I said, unless somebody had Chick-fil-A, then maybe I was looking at that. But no,
That's legendary. I love that.
Just randomly looking off to the side because for those two basically.
That's too good. Okay, someone wanted to know, do you have a least favorite team? And I don't know if you wanted to go, if you wanted to go with a specific one, like let's say 2000 LA Galaxy, or just like an organization in general.
Oh, I gotcha. I guess I would just, I guess I'd go with LA, when I was in San Jose. It's funny because I would say when I was with Columbus, I would have said Chicago.
Right.
And then most likely when I was in Chicago, I may have said Columbus. I can't really say that because I just love Columbus. I love Chicago too, but I really love Columbus. So it's hard.
Right.
But yeah, let's go with LA to be safe.
That'll
make sense.
Can you speak to ways that goalkeeper training has evolved over time from when you're coaching now to when you were training yourself?
Yeah. The biggest thing is there's a lot more time spent playing with your feet in training sessions. You're involving, distributions a lot more than we did back in the day. Back in the day, it was, diving and catching crosses and shots and, all that stuff. And now, it's so much more evolved, and, you're looking through more traffic, and you're dealing with, you're making it more, what's the word I'm looking for? Just dynamic, we'll call it,
well-rounded.
But there's always some sort of distribution, right?
Yeah.
Because pretty much every team now plays in some capacity, and that was one of the things Sean was big at. So we had to incorporate a lot of that. And I've done it numerous times with the youth national teams where we incorporate some sort of save or a cross, and now it's some sort of distribution or play out, get it back and switch it. So there's a lot more playing with our feet now in today's world than there was when I grew up.
Nice.
All right, so next one. If you had your pick, if you were in Greg's shoes right now, who would you pick as the starting goalkeeper for this upcoming World Cup for the US?
That's a tough one. I don't know. I've had this discussion a few times with some of my goalkeeping coaching buddies. Matt's done so well, right? So well in every opportunity he got. Unfortunately, Ethan had a little bit of an issue the other night, but I think Ethan's a very good goalkeeper as well. Sean did a great job in his game. Zach's in the past has shown he's Greg's boy, and that's his guy. And there's something to be said for that. I think, for me, I think it's going to come down to who's in form at that moment. Because if you look at every World Cup we've had, in the past, whether it was Casey or Brad or Timmy or that guy, whoever it was always playing consistently, was whoever they were playing for, like they were getting consistent games. And that, for me, that's, looking from the outside in, that's my concern is, I hope Zach goes on loan for the first bit of the season. And I hope Matt goes on loan. I don't know if Arsenal wants to loan him out as soon as he gets there, but for those guys, in my opinion, for those guys that have a legitimate chance to be at top form going into that, World Cup in November, they got to be playing, and the same with Ethan. I don't know Nottingham Forest if, where he's going to end up, in the pecking order, but if he's not playing, if he wants any chance at it, you got to get loaned out. And so it might, again, it might come back down to the very end, and whoever's in the best form, because I think, we have a very good team, we have a very young team, we have a very, very good team, but, in every World Cup we've been successful at, we need a goalkeeper in top form, and it's going to be the same in this World Cup. So it'll be interesting. I don't have an answer for that. I don't, because I mean, again, if one of those, and I'm not taking Sean Johnson out of the mix at all, but right now he's the only one starting consistently. But I think it's either going to be Matt or it's going to be Zach, but I think it's going to depend on if one gets loaned and gets games and one doesn't, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, no, we were talking about that a couple of weeks ago, and that's the exact same thing we said is you've got one goalkeeper right now out of your top 5 who's playing every single minute.
Yeah.
And he's barely getting called into camp every once in a while. So, it's going to be a very interesting decision, and one I do not envy Greg for at all, because it's not going to be easy.
No, it's not going to be easy at all.
This one comes from MLS Gone Wild. spice it up a little bit. You got any examples of a time where you had no communication with somebody, it led to an error, maybe a goal? He wants to know how important the ability to communicate is, but I think that's better off as an example, because I think if you have any, I don't know.
I'm sure there's plenty of them throughout the years. I mean, you got to go back to VHS to find them, but there was one in Hershey, I remember, and I'll tell you the reason why I remember it, but there was one in Hershey. My left back, Brazilian, Z Roberto, very good player. I didn't speak English. So ball, kind of diagonal ball over the top. He was up high. I come flying out. He's running back. Long story short, whole debacle, goal 1-0. I think Z even got a red card on the play or whatever. Halftime comes and Bob's going bananas. Bob threw a metal chair past us and like hit the wall with it. I was like, holy crap, that just happened. He was just pissed because of the lack of communication. And gave up a goal. We lost one of our best players and everything. So again, good old stories you can tell now back in the day, but like just that's the one that always comes to mind, just because Bob, again, every time Bob and I talk, that seems to somehow come up, so that's the one that always comes to mind. But I'm sure there's plenty in the MLS where it's the old he said, she said, I got it, you got it, no keepers away kind of call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like that. I like that story better than the we just didn't talk to each other. This guy threw a chair at me.
All right, so I don't know if I have one more here, unless Andrew wants to add any others.
I got one after. I have two after this. One that's here, one that's my own.
Okay. So who would you say, this could be a few, or if you have one in particular, was the most dangerous striker that you've gone up against?
Oh, geez. You can't, I can't name just one. I mean, there were so many of them. Landon, Robbie Keane, Ante Razov, Peter Novak, even though I don't think he was listed as a forward, he was, attacking midfielder. He was the fastest person I've ever seen with the ball at his feet. He was actually faster with the ball than he was without the ball. Echeverri and his free kicks, obviously David Beckham and his free kicks. Wanda was an unbelievable finisher. Thank God, I played with him. McBride was one of the most consistent finishers I've ever seen. Again, thank God I played twice, in Columbus and Chicago with him. Gosh, I'm trying. There's just there was so many. I mean, I'm probably missing 3/4 of the guys I played against that were just such quality. Taylor Twellman, just for Taylor, for me, Taylor was that blue collar worker that was just very opportunistic, and any chance he had a chance to smash me, he would. He got me in a national team camp on just like a little through ball I came out for. Instead of just letting me have it, he decides to like slide through me, and I felt like he tried to break me in half. And I'm like, Taylor, like, it's January, dude. What are we doing here? But that was Taylor. That's how he played every day. So again, just Roy Lassiter, again, just names popping back in my head of us. Like every one of them had a different dynamic as well. What made Robbie Keane so good compared to Landon or compared to, whoever else. Like just so much talent that I was fortunate or unfortunate maybe sometimes to play against them.
That's crazy. It's kind of crazy going back and just start naming names like, oh wow, they were all really, really good.
Yeah.
Somebody from the crew wanted to know what it was like to go back to Columbus in the Eastern Conference Final and get kind of heckled by the fans there. You and McBride together.
It was honestly, it was weird. It was weird. I mean, I remember getting heckled the first time I went back. Right, it was a regular season game, pretty early. And some guy, again, I don't know who he was, but some guy was hammering me, and I finally looked at him. I said, I didn't ask to leave. like, you're hammering me and I didn't ask to leave. Ziggy got rid of me. Like,
He sent
like,
me.
do you understand what happened? Because you are slaughtering me right now. Like, I asked to leave. Like, it was crazy. But it was, again, it was a weird situation. And that game was unbelievable. The Chicago Columbus game that year. And both teams knew whoever won that was going to win the cup. Like, we knew that was MLS Cup, even though it was the Eastern Conference Final. Like, we knew it. Both teams knew it. It was a great game. Chad Marshall still to this day does not let me live that down every time I talk to him. So, and I really love every year when MLS decides to show that on Twitter and Instagram, because all the kids that I've ever trained, they decide to retweet it to me, or
Of course, yeah.
Oh, no.
it's just great. It's lovely. But that was it was a weird situation to go back. It really was. But
I gotta say, just listen to you hear like all the just casually talking about some of the like people that we grow up like thinking are the coolest. You mentioned Tim Howard, like you call him every week and he's just your guy. Like, Tim Howard's my idol. I
don't talk to Tim, but some of the other guys, I mean, again, we're just guys who played football, played soccer together, and they're all just down to earth guys, and I was the same with Casey, right? I remember my first trip with Casey with the national team. And I remember we went down to Mexico City for a World Cup qualifier, and I sat the bench behind him, and on the plane out of Mexico, I had a few questions for him from the game, from things I observed, and I wanted to talk to him. And I remembered saying to him, "Hey, do you mind? Is it okay if I sit down?" And he was like, "Dude, sit down. Let's talk." Like, he was just so, he was so down to earth and so cool. And I was like, well, you're the guy I kind of look up to, but
yes,
we're just all kind of, I mean, look, we're playing a game we love. And at the end of the day, it's a game, and so it doesn't matter where you're playing or at what level, like, show respect to everybody, and we all love the game for the same reasons. Again, it doesn't matter if you're making a lot of money or not a lot of money, it's not important. So
right. Yeah, my last question stems off of that. You got any really cool jersey swaps or something? Because I know the field players do a lot. You keepers do jersey swaps often. Did you get a few kits?
Sometimes. I mean, I've got, I've in storage, I've got a lot of jerseys over the years. I wasn't at first, I wasn't huge on it. But again, as you get older and you realize things, I got a lot of the older guys that I really respect. Again, Casey's, Troy Perkins was a good friend of mine, so I got his, Matt Reese, Onstead, Scotty Garlicks. I got guys who there was some sort of connection to.
Sure. Yeah.
The big thing for me is I like collecting gloves, different people's gloves.
Nice.
So again, something a little bit different. And again, I got them all in storage, but like I've got Carlo Cudicini's gloves. I've got Sar's gloves. I got a pair of Shea Gibbons gloves. That was the thing for me, is I like to get their gloves. I like to get them signed. And, so that was kind of my little thing. More than I have a lot of jerseys, but more than jerseys, it was getting gloves.
That's super unique and super cool. That's that's a nice little, like, again, unique, right? It's everybody's trading kits. Hey, let me just grab your gloves real quick, and because that's a lot easier to trade too. You can get 7 pairs sent right to you.
Oh yeah.
That's super cool.